What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Stories with Mr. Ahamad. Thank you so much for joining me here at my home. It's always a pleasure to have you here listening to me talk about books. With things being so weird right now as a teacher, and me teaching from home, everything's fully remote, meaning that the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep, I can technically be at work. But given that timeline, I've made sure that I'm exercising self-care. And that means stepping away from my laptop and stepping away from work to do some things that I enjoy. And one of the things that I really enjoy that I haven't spoken about much on my Instagram or in any of my videos is that I love video games. I think Excite Bike on the Nintendo was one of the first games I've ever played, and ever since then I was hooked. Super Mario, Donkey Kong, Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Tekken. Tekken, so fun. But then I like art house games too, like Shadow of the Colossus and Last Guardian. But one of my favorite games is The Last of Us, and I can talk about that for days. But that is not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to tell you about a book that makes me think about video games and other things. And that book is Slay by Brittney Morris. This is a fun book. If you like books like Warcross by Mary Lou or Ready Player One, or if you've read manga like Sword Art Online or have seen that anime Summer Wars, then this will be right up your alley. This is about a young black girl by the name of Kira who loves video games and she's really good with tech. But she can't find a game that's welcoming to black players. And from that moment I was simply hooked, because the number of games I've played and to never find myself represented in video games, unless it's like a sports game, that sucks. There are a number of games that I can play with, white characters like Uncharted and, Spec Ops and Enslaved and Devil May Cry and God of War. Anything that is a AAA title is probably going to feature a white character of some kind. Now, there are some AAA titles where they have done some customizable things, like with Mass Effect, where you get to create your own character.
I'm black. What the is going on here? They call me dark chocolate. That's how black I can get.
But yeah, it's it's disheartening, because something that I have loved and participated in so much just didn't seem to love me back. Even when I look at games like Street Fighter and Tekken, where the cast would try to be as diverse as possible, but the black characters were always stereotyped until way later. So I mean, it's been tough, and Brittney she saw that and she wanted to change it, not just for herself but for other people that she played games with. So she goes out of her way to create this game Slay that isn't necessarily exclusive to black gamers, but it's designed for black gamers. And what she does is brilliant, because she tucks in all of this black culture and history that you wouldn't get in school or without studying on your own into the game as different sets of cards. So the power-ups that you use, the abilities, the places that you go, all based on black culture, all based on black history. And the more you actually know, the more academic you are in those areas, the quicker you'll be able to utilize the cards. And there's everything in it, from stuff about Michael Jackson moonwalking to Air Jordan sneakers so you jump really high, to your grandmother's macaroni and cheese that slows an opponent down. It is phenomenal how they integrated that stuff in a way so that it wasn't preachy, but that you were learning something while engaging in this sci-fi story about this young girl exploring what it means to be represented and how she could do that for others. In addition to that, there's this really cool arc in the book about how black do you need to be about, black liberation and black advancement? And that really spoke to me because, as someone that has been referred to as an Oreo growing up, and someone who, married a white woman, is that there's always this thing about being black enough, and you have to become comfortable in your own identity, that you are still you are still black regardless of what happens, and you can participate and contribute to the culture as much as you can, just like anyone else. So, that whole thing with blackness being a spectrum, again, what else is so cool is that because it's a mass multiplayer online game, is that there are black people featured in this book from all across the diaspora, from, different backgrounds, different black cultures, different orientations. And it's just really good to see that it was packaged in a video game, and that this story that's really, more than representation, it's about safe spaces, and that this story about that was packaged in something that was so fun. Because, the more I'm reading and the more I'm reviewing and the more that I'm offering, the more I'm realizing that we need less stories about police brutality. There's a lot to blackness, there's a lot to black culture, and there's a lot more black literature out there about things that's not about black and brown bodies being brutalized. So, I'll take more of these. Like Brittney Morris, if you want to write another, if you want to do a sequel, then I am all for it. Now, y'all know me. I'm not just about sharing stories so that you can have a good time. I'm all about sharing stories so that you can use them in your classroom. And the thing that I think about with this is Gamergate. Now, if you're not a gamer, you probably haven't heard of it, or you probably don't remember it. But pretty much there was this thing about, women not being represented in games, but also being unjustly berated. Although I don't know if there's ever a justification for being berated, but for this hostility towards them when they were playing online. And it's so interesting because I had a student last year who, played Call of Duty, and she always told me how good she was and showed me her stats. And the stuff she would tell me that guys said to her online was horrific. So, and it's not just about girls though, it's also about being black. The number of students that I talk to who play, NBA 2K online, or Fortnite, or Call of Duty, or Battlefield, whatever, I don't know, I don't play those. I'm more so about the fighting games and the first person, like, solo adventures. Anyway, the number of times that they're called the N-word, or, their slave jokes made and things of that nature, it's disheartening. It's almost like, why play video games in the first place if this is the atmosphere that you have to be in? This is, it's not safe. And I know they're just words, but you can't take words back. And hearing that every day has to do something to you. So by going over Gamergate and going over this book, you can have a conversation with your students about the power of language and why it's important to have safe spaces. That's crucial because, while some people joke about, safe spaces and snowflakes and stuff because people are getting too sensitive, it's when you look online at the hostility and verbal violence that exists there, you really need a place that you can get away from that. And sometimes it's not home. So, have that conversation with your students, because more often than not, they're spending time in those digital spaces where that language runs rampant. And we need to give them a space to express themselves. Secondly, I think it would be cool to take inventory of representation from popular games. So, take created players off the table, and what games and what titles do black characters and other BIPOCs show up? And in other cases, what games do women show up where they aren't over-sexualized? So that could really open them up to understanding representation and about how there are businesses that indirectly exclude people from participating or feeling welcome. So we can really get them thinking about these hobbies of theirs, or the things that they do in downtime, in an academic sense. Because one thing I always tell my students is that no matter what the industry, no matter what the activity, there is an academic component to it. Someone's making money off of something, and someone's planning a way to make that money. So to have them think about that will, chances are will broaden their worldview and have them be a bit more critical about what they're consuming. The third thing that you can do with this book is that as they read it and come across new power cards and abilities within the game, they can conduct research to come up with or to understand why those are included and why they're important, and whether or not the characteristics of the card line up with what's happening in the book. And then on top of that, you can have them design their own cards. Have them design like 5 different cards, or like a deck of, you know, abilities based on Black culture and Black history. Because while there's a lot in here, it doesn't give you every single card. So that could be a really fun game with your kids. So given all that, as a teacher, you may not be familiar or comfortable with video games, but a concept that you should definitely understand, because we work with kids, is this idea of safe spaces. So while this may be a reach for you, you can still use it in a way that speaks to the students and allows you to teach, you know, sci-fi literature, and allows you to teach some kind of Black history and culture, because it's embedded in here. So there are a lot of conversations that you can have. One thing that I didn't mention that I meant to is that, check this out, Nick Stone recommended this book highly, and y'all know how I feel about Nick Stone. Anything she says to read, I'm gonna go read it. So, you know, now I'm also giving you the recommendation. When you get the time, pick this up, think about including it in your class, because as students are moving more towards the digital space, they need to think about how to protect themselves and how to be conscious about what they consume, whether or not it's something they opt into or something that they receive passively. This is a great book to do that. Go read it.